Hello, I am going to do a quick little tutorial with you all. So many people have asked me about this little accordion tree journal, and I just got these stencils back in the shop, so I thought it would be fun to show you this little tutorial in case you're thinking of getting the stencils or you've already gotten them, because it's a really fun quick project and it comes out really cool. All you need is the Nature Study set of stencils, which I have in my Etsy as of today. I have tons. And they're really fun. So I just did the book with the whole set. And it only takes like not very long. So what you're going to need is, ideally, I mean, you could use an 8.5 by 11 or a 9 by 12. I used an 11 by 14 piece of watercolor paper. I like to use Canson. It's just easy to find. Actually, it says 11 by 15. So what I did is I trimmed a piece down like so, and I just kind of made some wavy lines at the top. So I already, for the sake of keeping this video short and cutting out kind of the boring process, I just took my brush and splattered this paper on both sides, essentially, just with a little bit of watercolor. So I used two colors. This journal, when I made it, was just greens and kind of earthy browns. So I thought for this one today, we could do some pinks and browns. So once you cut out this shape, I would say, cut it on the 3 or the 4 inch line, and then just kind of cut it the long way. And you can splatter it and put that aside. Next, we need to make our trees. And people love a stencil and watercolor video because it does take some practice. And everyone's always asking me, how do you perfect the watercolor and stencil techniques? All I can say is there is a small learning curve, but when you practice and you take the pressure off perfection, it comes along pretty quickly. So on this booklet, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees. So I'm going to do all 5 trees from this set. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to do pinks and reds. So I'm just going to create like a puddle ahead of time of some pink, watercolor, and some brown, because I like to have a variation of color in the stencil. I'll start with this linear tree. And what I'll do to kind of prevent seepage under the stencil, excuse me, is I will kind of just start in the middle. And then I'll kind of go along the edge just once. I don't want to go back and forth. And I'm just going to kind of gently go across it one time. And as I get down to, ooh, that came out way darker than I planned, but that's fine. As I go down to the branches, I might make it a little brown. It doesn't matter if you have some bleeding or seepage. I tend not to care too much about that stuff, mainly because it's watercolor. And It is kind of part of the watercolor effect to have some bleeding. It doesn't bother me. I love it. I think it's so cool. So I'm going to move on to another tree. These are just, I don't know, it's like a mom. Like, you can't have your favorite child. It's just too hard to have one. They're all so unique and different. But I will say, I mean, I do have some favorites in terms of stencils, not children, in case they're watching. And I love these tree stencils. They're just so versatile, and there's so many different ways to play with them, especially if you're going to do what we're doing today and just like picking a color story. So I'm not going to worry too much if I have a little bleeding, because once I cut it out, it'll be fine. And again, it just adds to the watercolor effect. Now, one thing that I say over and over, when you're using stencils, especially if you're doing watercolor, people always ask me, do you wash your stencils? No, not really. However, if I am using watercolor on them, I want to wipe the watercolor off because it is reactive. That means the next time I go, if I were to go and do white, all this pink is going to mix in with the white. So I do wipe it off. The other thing is, when you're working with watercolor like we are today, you want to, if you're going to do multiples of the same image, then you definitely want to dry off your stencil. You want to pat it dry. You don't want to beat it up, but you do want to pat it dry, because then you will be preventing the kind of water seepage that does happen if it's too wet. So any kind of water on the underside of your stencil is going to pull the water that's on the top of the stencil underneath. And that's how you get that seepage underneath and the bleeding. And the best way to avoid it is to just use less water. Okay, so as you can see, we've got some blendy things. If there's anything that you don't like, you can kind of jazz it up a little bit with your brush. But again, it just lends itself to the look of watercolors. And I mean, just look how beautiful it is. That's why I love watercolor, because it's so imperfect, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So we're going to go ahead, do all four, let them dry, and then we're going to cut them out. Okay, and it's up to you. If you want to leave a white border like this, you can, or you can cut directly up to the stencil. It's entirely up to you. Now we're going to get our piece of watercolor that's been trimmed out. And what you can do if you're doing the 11 by 15 is, I have 3 marks. I have one at the 4-inch mark, another one at the 4-inch mark, and then here I've come in at 3 inches. So I've gone in 3 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches. You don't have to do it that way, but I liked having the first page a little smaller. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, at the 3-inch mark, I'm going to score it, and then I'm going to score it at the other 2 4-inch marks. Essentially, you're making 4 lines on your page. If this seems too much mental work, just divide your page mathematically into quarters, and then just do the lines accordingly. But again, I liked the idea of having one fold a little smaller. And then as I fold them, I'm going to zigzag. So I'm going to do one front ways, one back ways, kind of making an accordion. See? So I have one going this way, one going that way, and then one coming this way again. Once you get them all folded, you can rearrange it so you've got the zigzag, but it's essentially pretty straightforward. Now, everybody always talks to me about these dots, and these are from a paper punch. So I'm going to grab my paper punch that I used. You could use any. This is a common one that I use all the time, but the dots are what I used for this. Actually, this isn't even the dots that I used. Let me just see if I have the other one. Okay. These are all, people always ask me, these are done by a company called EK Success. They're kind of everywhere, and you can experiment for sure. And basically, I'm just going to line up my edge. I want to make sure it's open all the way. There we go. I'm going to line up my edge and just push down. Takes a lot of effort, especially to go through the watercolor. I'm trying not to move my phone, but oops. I can put a link to this particular one in the description of this video because I'm sure people like to use the same thing. Whew, okay. And then if you're smart, you could save your little dots because that makes great confetti. You know, if you want to send somebody a fun letter, I think it'll look great in there. All right. So next, we're going to glue everything onto our book. And I'm just going to do it the same way as I did this one. And I am using the new Dina Wakley Media Glue. It's so awesome. It works great on watercolor paper. So, but if you have any kind of glue that you love and works well for you, then you can use that. So I'm just going to place a tree on each page. I'm sorry if I shook the camera before, my gosh. I forgot paper punching watercolors. There's watercolor paper is not exactly easy. But I will tell you, if you're going to get paper punches, they're really only meant for cardstock. It is almost impossible to do it through regular paper unless you bunch it up so you have several pieces in a stack. They're really just meant for cardstock. So they're not super user-friendly in terms of paper. Now I'm going to let my tree stick out a little bit. And I might have gotten some glue, especially on our holes there. You just want to wipe off any glue, so that way it's not going through the holes to the next page. And then on this one, I have this back tree, which came out so pretty. decor screen that I bought that I'm using underneath. It was very pricey and my little 7-year-old scribbled on it accidentally. So I can now abuse it freely. You can see his scribbles. Okay. And if you know where your trees are gonna hit, then on your book, you don't have to put glue on the back like I did. You can actually prevent extra glue. It doesn't really matter, you can wipe it off, but I'm just trying to work quickly here. Okay. And then this one, okay, I have here. So now I'm gonna try and remember not to do it all the way up. I'm not gonna do it all the way down either, because it looks like I trimmed my trunk. So I'm just wiping off excess glue. I'm going to trim my excess trunks so they don't stick out at the bottom of the book, because that's not the look we're going for. We're going for a look at the top of the book. Now, I am noticing that I decided on the first book to paint the back of this tree. So see how this tree is white, but I painted it green there. So I'm just gonna go in real quick and paint it red. So that way it doesn't, it looks intentional, right? So now we've got the whole effect here. And we have one more tree to glue. Here. And I'm placing everything the way that I did in the first book, only so that I can do all the stenciling with you as best as I can. Okay. So in this book, I did go through, and it looks like I did watercolor, but I didn't. Okay. I did a good job. It looks just like watercolor. I am going to use this penny acrylic paint, which you can't get anymore, but any kind of light brown is fine. Gotta cover this glue. Always cover your glue as soon as it's done. It's so awesome because it works so well. It does dry quickly, which is why I love it. But okay. So on the first page, this is a Ranger mini blending tool. I use this, it comes with a blending foam, but you can use whatever you have. I know a lot of people like, to use just regular foams for their stencils, and you could try and do watercolors too with the words, but because there's so much variation with those, you know, I recommend doing it this way. So you got your words. All right, so this one is going in the opposite direction, but that's okay. I'm just going to put it on the opposite side. This is what I love about stencils. So these two trees, same stencil going two different directions. That's so awesome, and you can't do that with stamps, not usually. It's so awesome with stencils, because if you have faces or people, you can make two facing each other, like this, right? So that's a fun way to play with stencils. I love how versatile they all can be. And I'm choosing this light color because it does give that nature notes. It gives that watercolor feel if you do something light. It's not quite as bold. It's going black. So hopefully I'm lining these up well, but because I'm working fast, I might not be. Oh, looks good so far. Observation. And of course, like if you were to make this book, you could use any words you want in any arrangement you want. I'm just doing exactly what I did on my first book because that's the easiest thing for me to do right now. But I have so many other word stencils and things like that that you could throw in. And then what I decided to do, just to jazz it up, because it did feel a little plain, is go in and add some writing wherever I wanted. Now, I like using gel pens for this kind of thing. So because we have a lot of reds here, it could be fun to go in with pinks. I'm going to go in with gold because I don't, personally, I'm just going to play with it that way. And I'm going to do a bit of a sgraffito look. And go through the whole book and just kind of do some little words. And then, you know, it could be fun to add a stamp or something like a paper stamp, whatever you love. Okay, so see how the sgraffito just adds to it a little bit? And you've got this beautiful, beautiful book. So again, the stencil set is called Nature Study. It's in the shop now. You get 3 stencils, 2 trees, and then you've got this set of all kinds of cool words that are great, especially for now, all about nature and summer and that kind of thing. So anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll try to do more tutorials like this with different stencil sets. I already have another one that I want to do, so I might pop that in shortly. So people have ideas on the stencils they have and how to use them, and just give you some fun small projects.